One question. Is it too late to change the name?
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think Ant-Man is pretty darn cool. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very exciting Avengers project related video. And you all know the drill by now with this specific video is that we are once again going to break down the top 5 suits I believe we need to see be featured within Marvel's Avengers for each specific superhero that is featured so far within the main roster. So previously, we did in fact break down the top 5 Iron Man armors as well as the top 5 Captain America suits that should be featured within the Avengers project. Now, for today's list, we are moving on to one of the biggest scientific minds within the Marvel Universe as a whole is none other than Hank Pym, also known of course as Ant-Man. Now, even though we actually haven't seen any gameplay footage of Ant-Man in action so far, it did appear that he was going to be a character to be added within the game's roster after its main launch on May 15th, 2020. Because as the developers have stated, there will in fact be numerous heroes and regions added to the base game for years to come. And knowing that the game's base roster seems to be what will be focusing around the primary narrative of the story overall relating to Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hulk, and Black Widow, I'm not entirely sure whether or not Hank Pym will actually be included within the game's main story or if he'll just be playable once he is added to the game's main character list. But no matter how big or small Ant-Man's role is going to be within the Avengers project's main story, I'm just very excited to actually play as him within the game overall. Not to mention that I fully believe Ant-Man, just like Iron Man, will have almost an infinite amount of customization abilities at his disposal. This is mainly because there have been a lot of different Ant-Man outfits within the comics and the fact that there have been entirely different people who have taken up the Ant-Man mantle. And while we do know that we will be playing as the original Ant-Man himself of Hank Pym, we still don't know for sure whether or not the other iterations of the character like that of Scott Lang could appear in the future after the game's main launch. Still, regardless as to which Ant-Man we are specifically playing as, these are just the specific costumes I would love to see Ant-Man wear within the game. Now, as for the list itself, let's begin with an oldie but goodie, which is none other than the classic Ant-Man outfit from the comics. The weird thing about Ant-Man's presence within the Avengers project so far is that we haven't really seen what his full-on superhero getup is actually going to be in the full game. Now, even though this simple red jacket could easily be his standard superhero getup, I really do hope he has a much more impactful costume once we fully play through the game. But whatever the case may be, actually relating to what his Marvel's Avengers costume looks like, I would just personally love to see what the classic attire could look like within the Avengers Project universe. This obviously includes the gigantic silver ant helmet that he wears within the comics, as well as the standard red and black getup. And even though some people claim this to be one of the lamest Ant-Man suits out there, I do think if Crystal Dynamics were to put their own spin on it, it could actually look 10 times better than its original design. So just like how I thought the classic Captain America outfit would be a nice change of pace compared to the more militaristic look that he currently has within Marvel's Avengers, I do think the same exact situation applies with the much more classic and vibrant look of the classic Ant-Man suit. Now, as for the next suit or suits on the list is anything but its classic rendition. This specific suit choice is a bit of a wild card, but I do think that if they were to include one, if not possibly all of them within Marvel's Avengers, it would definitely be a huge amount of fan service for everyone involved. And of course, I'm mainly referring to any one of the singular Ant-Man costumes that you can find within his many appearances in the MCU. Just like almost all the other heroes within the Marvel Cinematic Universe films, they almost always undergo a different costume change every time they get a new movie. So specifically for Ant-Man's case, he did have a much more modernized version of the standard Ant-Man outfit within his first solo film in 2015. And following that, he obviously got a major upgrade within Captain America Civil War when his newest Ant-Man suit was able to actually turn him into Giant Man. And while I believe Scott Lang was actually able to hold on to that specific version of the suit within his next movie appearances in Ant-Man and the Wasp, as well as within Avengers Endgame, he also managed to equip his own personal Quantum Realm suit within the time heist of that film. And for me personally, any one of these MCU outfits could work for me to be featured within Marvel's Avengers, either with that of the 2015 suit, the Captain America Civil War suit, or any of the Endgame suits. And given how many outfits that they actually have to choose from either that of the movies or the comics, I think it'd be a little bit foolish if they didn't at least least include one within this game. Sadly, if you do recall, they did confirm that there will in fact be microtransactions featured within the Avengers project, so if anything, I could see them possibly including these suits as a pay-to-get scenario. Luckily, the developers did say that there will be no pay-to-win scenarios or any random loot boxes of any kind, so I do think that these microtransactions will only be used for a cosmetic purpose. And while I personally wouldn't want any of these suits to be hidden behind a paywall, I could easily see them actually doing it if inclined so. So hopefully we actually end up learning about more as to how these microtransactions will operate before the game actually releases. Now as for the next suit on my list, actually relates to a completely different iteration of Ant-Man. Just like with the majority of the MCU suits, almost all of them directly related to Scott Lang instead of Hank Pym. And with this next outfit in particular, it mainly relates to the same exact concept, except this time it relates to the one and only irredeemable Ant-Man of Erik OGrady. So in case you're unaware, Erik OGrady is the third iteration of Ant-Man after that of Scott Lang, and as the name implies with irredeemable, he wasn't as heroic as that of the other two. Even though Erik initially started off using the Ant-Man abilities for his own personal gain and purposes, he then decided to leave that life behind and become a proper hero. Now again, I'm not entirely sure whether or not Erik will actually be featured in the Avengers project as one of the main characters, but given that Hank Pym is the only Ant-Man that we see so far, I don't know for sure if that will indeed be the case. But as for the suit itself, I absolutely love the more bug-like look that it is going for, especially with the giant antennas on the top of the helmet/mask. I genuinely love how insect-like this suit actually looks, and I really hope that it is featured in some way or another within the Avengers project. And who knows, maybe Hank Pym will actually reference Scott Lang and or Erik OGrady during one point of the game's story. But I guess we'll just have to wait until May 15th, 2020 to find out for sure. Now as for the second to last suit on this list is another outfit which heavily relates to the more classic interpretations of the overall Ant-Man costume. However, this time around, it's a much more bigger interpretation of the classic Ant-Man look, and of course, I'm talking about the standard Giant Man suit. Now, oddly enough, this used to be my least favorite Ant-Man attire out of the bunch, but I do think if Crystal Dynamics were to design it to fit their own unique world, I could see them pulling off a really cool design. My favorite part about this outfit is the unique black and red patterning that is going across the suit, but I'm not a big fan of the two antennas that are going off of the mask. But just like how the classic suit really resonates with a lot of hardcore Ant-Man fans, I definitely think this suit will speak the same volumes if it is included within the game. And finally, as we move on to the very final costume on this list is yet again another very interesting pick due to the fact that this could either A, be a simple outfit that Hank Pym could wear in the game, or B, it could be a completely different character entirely. And if you've guessed by now, I'm talking about none other than the Yellow Jacket attire. Now what makes this suit so interesting is that they could actually dive deep into the Yellow Jacket persona within the Avengers project storyline, or they could actually have it be a completely different character. Because if you've seen the first Ant-Man movie, you'll know that Ant-Man actually fought against the Yellow Jacket as the main villain of that film. And even though I do think Corey Stoll did do a really good job playing as Darren Cross / Yellow Jacket within that film, that isn't actually who Yellow Jacket is within the comics. Let's just say that being the Yellow Jacket wasn't really a good time for Hank within the comics, and I do think it would be a very emotional impact for the narrative if they were to do that within the Avengers project. And while I may not be the biggest fan as to how this suit looks on an aesthetic level, I really would actually like to see it be featured somehow within the overall suit selection of this game. And whether or not the Yellow Jacket persona is actually going to be used as a plot device during the Avengers project story is still up in the air, but I for one can't wait to find out. But anyways guys, that was my list for the top 5 suits I believe we need to see be featured in Marvel's Avengers by the time the game does release. What did you personally think of my list, and of course, what are your personal picks for the suits that you would like to see in the game itself? For me personally, the Erik OGrady / irredeemable Ant-Man suit is one of my all-time favorites, and I would absolutely love to see it be featured one way or another within this game. And if it sadly comes to the point where that suit in particular is locked behind some microtransactions, I might just go through with it because of how much I love that suit. And with the Marvel Games panel set on July 18th, I can't wait to see what's in store next for the game. But until next time everyone, thank you all so much for watching, stay merry Marvelites, and peace out.
Does anyone have any orange slices?